primary domestic areas. There's also some indications of ceremonial uses.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 archaeological finds so chilling they rival any horror film. The Staked Man.
Archaeologists in Bulgaria discover an unusual find. 2 so-called vampire skeletons, 700-year-old remains stabbed through the chest with iron rods.
Vampires may be fictional, but in Bulgaria, there was a time people believed they were all too real. At Teotihuacán, archaeologists discovered a 13th century corpse pinned with a steel stake to stop him from rising. This was often done to those who died unusually and who were feared to return as the undead. This staked corpse was treated with extra caution. Locals didn't just pin him, they severed his left leg and placed it beside his body. Fear of vampires was so strong that vampire hunters reportedly existed, and the superstition lasted well into the 20th century.
Taking on a vampire at night is a mission for morons and fools. Which are you?
Just imagining the level of hysteria that drove people in Eastern Europe to this is scary enough. Few horror films feel as unsettling as this discovery.
You cannot love.
I cannot. Yet I cannot be sated without you.
The man-eating animals of Teotihuacán. In the pyramids of Teotihuacán, archaeologists found evidence that ancient people kept dangerous animals like pumas, wolves, jaguars, and eagles over 1,000 years ago.
There is a fundamental change in human-animal dynamics.
These animals were held in captivity for rituals and displays of power, often controlled through brutal methods. But the scariest discovery is that human remains were buried right alongside these apex predators. Findings show that these animals fed on creatures such as dogs, rabbits, and possibly humans.
These animals were real, they were kept in captivity, relationships were formed.
At Teotihuacán, artwork even depicts animals consuming human hearts and participating in rituals, sometimes portrayed like warriors. The thought of being placed in the same pit with these beasts for some twisted sacrifice is utterly terrifying. Shackled skeletons.
Are you all right?
Sure. I got a fine horse under me.
Yet another eerie discovery. This points to a violent chapter in ancient Athenian history. In 2016, archaeologists uncovered a shocking mass grave containing about 80 skeletons, many bound in shackles. Dating back to around 650 to 625 BCE, the bones belonged mostly to young, healthy men, suggesting they weren't ordinary burials. In fact, researchers believe it may be evidence of a brutal political massacre linked to a failed coup in Athens. According to legend, an athlete named Cylon rose to seize power with his followers, but that coup wasn't successful. After fleeing and being promised safe passage by the city's archon, Megacles, they were ultimately killed. Though the truth remains uncertain, whatever happened to those shackled corpses reveals a dark and unsettling moment in history.
Hurry! Stop your hand, please! Hurry! Oh, God. What? Oh, my God. I'm so sorry, Paul.
What is...
So sorry.
What is it?
It's Mark White. He brought us to Mark White.
Pit full of severed hands. Horror movies can terrify us, but at least we watch them from the safety of our homes. For enemies of ancient Egyptians, there was no escape from real horror.
I lost my hand!
In 2011, archaeologists uncovered pits just outside the palace of the Hyksos king, believed to be King Kian, containing severed right hands. These supposedly belonged to defeated enemies, collected by commanders as trophies to count the number of enemies slain in battles. Placed in front of the palace, the hands carried deep symbolic meaning, showing power and dominance. To be an enemy of these kingdoms wasn't just death, it meant facing humiliating and brutal mutilation. Honestly, it's a real-life horror no movie could ever match.
People really should learn to keep their hands to themselves. Here's yours.
The Book of the Dead. Remember that scene in The Mummy where Evelyn reads from the Book of the Dead and accidentally wakes the mummies?
No! You must not read from the book!
Well, it's even scarier knowing that the book actually exists. It's not a single book, but a collection of funerary texts, prayers, and spells written on papyrus.
A well-preserved copy of the Book of the Dead was just uncovered in Egypt.
Rather than summoning spirits, it was meant to guide the dead safely through the underworld and help them reach final judgment. Archaeologists have found various of these books, usually of impressive heights, in tombs dating back over 3,500 years.
The Book of the Dead contains ancient rituals for the living to perform in order to help the deceased on their journeys to their deities.
Since the teams behind these discoveries often keep mum about the details of the book's content, who knows what terrifying secrets it holds? Sacrificed bog people. Silent witnesses to ancient cruelty, bog bodies are human remains preserved for thousands of years in peat bogs across northern and eastern Europe.
Officials named the body the Lindo Man and determined that he'd suffered serious injuries, including blunt trauma and strangulation. But the most shocking thing about this gruesome story was that they were able to determine these details from a body over 2,000 years old.
At first glance, you might not realize they've been dead for ages, since the low oxygen environment tends to keep the skin, hair, and internal organs intact. Yet these bodies, frozen in time, were often victims of violent deaths. While no one can tell why they were subjected to such brutality, some researchers believe this was done as a form of sacrifice or punishment.
But his corpse is otherwise so well preserved that we can determine he was healthy, mid-20s, and potentially wealthy, as his body shows few signs of hard labor. We even know the Lindo Man's last meal, a still undigested piece of charred bread.
Some were probably left in the water as a sacrifice to the gods. Discovered in 1984, the Lindo Man's fate is a frightening example of what people went through in the ancient times. Genocide pit. Between 2002 and 2005, archaeologists studied Sacred Ridge in Durango, Colorado, and what they discovered is deeply unsettling. A massive pit contained nearly 15,000 human bone fragments, belonging to about 35 people, roughly half of the settlement's population. Here's where it gets more disturbing. These victims weren't just killed.
This is Sparta!
They were tortured, mutilated, and subject to other brutal forms of suffering. Scholars believe this wasn't a random raid, but a targeted attack aimed to wipe out a distinct group. Not even women or children were spared, marking it as a horrific act of ethnic cleansing, likely fueled by anger, suspicion of witchcraft, or food shortages. Whatever the reason, it's frightening to realize that this was someone's reality and not a scene from a horror flick.
So that we can take the data we need, excavate them carefully and respectfully, and then we're removing them and we'll ultimately rebury them.
The Screaming Mummies.
He was condemned to endure the home die, the worst of all ancient curses, one so horrible it had never before been bestowed.
Eternally screaming mummy? Even Imhotep's fate can't match the level of this traumatic death. In 1886, Egyptologist Gaston Maspero discovered a corpse with its mouth frozen wide open, as if caught in an eternal scream. No jewelry, no inscriptions, just a body twisted in agony. Scholars believe it was Prince Pentaway, the son of Ramesses III, who joined his mother in a conspiracy to murder the pharaoh. Ancient records say he was forced to take his own life, but this mummy appeared to have suffered worse, with hands and feet bound and body improperly embalmed. In 1935, an expedition team found the Screaming Woman, who may have endured a similarly painful death, leaving her frozen in a silent scream.
Wait, no!
Field of Vampire Mummies. It's the kind of image you'd expect from the horror film The Nun, a body forcibly gagged or decapitated to prevent it from returning. That's exactly how skeletons were found in Poland during roadway construction near Gliwice. Archaeologists found what appeared to be a medieval anti-vampire burial.
Być może ta kobieta po prostu była inna, może cierpiała na choroby, jak się okazało z badań antropologicznych, które przeprowadziliśmy, analiz specjalistycznych, że faktycznie była to osoba schorowana, więc być może ta choroba powodowała takie objawy, że po śmierci sądzono, że może po prostu ona wrócić w postaci demona lub powiedzmy szkodzić zmarł.
To ensure these corpses wouldn't rise, their heads were cut off and placed between their legs. In Italy, one woman was even buried with a wedge in her mouth to prevent her from feeding on the living. In 2023, a mass burial site of 450 individuals subjected to similar anti-vampiric rituals was discovered.
Please. Holy blood! We're strong in the Lord! In the power of his might! We're strong in the Lord!
Even sadder, unexplainable disasters often led people to be falsely accused of vampirism, condemning them to these humiliating burials.
Dlaczego? Bo generalnie, jeśli chodzi o pochówki dzieci, to zawsze one były traktowane w taki sposób mniej dbały. Ale też wiadomo, że dzieci się obawiano, zwłaszcza dzieci, które zmarły nieochrzczone albo w sposób tragiczny, na przykład zginęły czy się utopiły.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. The Death Mountain. Sadly, not even miners were safe from the harsh realities of ancient times. In 1999, Johann Reinhard and his archaeological team discovered perfectly preserved child mummies on the Argentina-Chile border.
They had discovered the highest tomb on Earth.
It appears that these miners were sacrificed around the year 1500 for ritual purposes. Apparently, these Inca rituals were often performed to ask the gods for protection in times of famine or to mark important events.
It was as if we were afraid at some level that we might wake this mummy up because she seemed just so alive.
Many of these miners were sent to mountaintops and left to die there. The mummies discovered by Reinhardt were found inside a small chamber beneath the ground and were likely drugged during the process. They might look peaceful, but it's downright creepy, especially considering the awful death they were subjected to.
Someone had gone to a lot of trouble to bury this girl in an extraordinary place.
What's the creepiest archaeological discovery you've ever heard about? Let us know in the comments section.